everybody, welcome back to Jessica's Reading Room. My name is Kim and today we are here to review, oh my gosh, The Arc of a Scythe trilogy by Neal Shusterman, one of my all-time favorite authors. Oh my gosh, I haven't read a single thing by him yet that I haven't liked. And this is probably one of my favorites of all of his writings. I mean, 3 years of my life has been invested in this series. The ups, the downs, the emotional roller coaster. Lots of feelings, lots of, not gonna lie to you, okay? I finished the third book a couple days ago and I nearly broke down in tears at Denny's because I was so overwhelmed by all the feelings and all the emotions and all the philosophizing and all of the questions. And I legit, normally, you know, stories themselves make me cry, but the fact that I have spent so much of the last 3 years, you know, pondering this series, it was all finished and I just, what do I do with my life now? You know, you felt that. You guys understand what I'm talking about. Overwhelming, emotionally exhausting. But that's okay, because today we are going to talk about my thoughts about this series. We have book number 1, Scythe. We have book number 2, Thunderhead. And then as of 6 days ago, the newly published book number 3, The Toll. And plus these covers are amazing. Not gonna lie to you, I absolutely love these covers. The colors are gorgeous. They fit the stories so well. Oh, it's almost perfection. Not quite perfection, but almost perfection. And that's saying a lot, okay? Because we book nerds are actually hard to please. And so the fact that I was pleased, again, that's saying a lot. So let's start with book number 1. I gave this book 5 stars out of 5. I remember the first time I read it, believe it or not, the first time I read it, I actually was a little worried because like the first half-ish of the book, actually, it might not even be the first half. I think it was more like the first quarter. It was just kind of going really slow and I wasn't really getting what was going on. And I was like, and I almost put it down, but then I said, no, I'm going to keep reading. I'm going to finish it. And when I did, oh my gosh, I was so happy that I did, because this easily has turned into one of my all-time favorite books. Period. Basically, Earth is now a perfect world. Death and illness has been conquered by the now conscious cloud known as the Thunderhead. It is conscious, it is feeling, and it is almost perfect. It contains all of human knowledge. Like I said, it has conquered death. People are now living for eternity. They are able to dial their age back to whatever age they would like. I believe over like the age of 20, 25. And because of this, Earth now has a population problem. So in order to fix it, the Thunderhead has given over the role of death givers to humanity because it did not feel that it was its place to dole out death, even though it, like I said, it is almost perfect and probably would be able to do it without any kind of real, I mean, it would really just be based on computations and complete randomness. Look, I'm not a hacker. I'm not really a coder. I don't know anything about that. I'm just totally just pulling it out of my butt. Okay. I don't know. But the Thunderhead decides to give over this power to a group of people who are, for the most part, worthy, known as the Scythedom. Scythes go out and they don't kill people. They glean people for the good of humanity to practice population control. Now, we have Citra and Rowan, who are 2 regular kids who are chosen by Scythe Faraday to be his apprentices to learn to be Scythes. Excuse me. Now, as we go through their training, we figure out what is going on in the Scythedom, and there are problems that arise in the form of Scythe Goddard and his new order. Now, here's the thing about Scythe, okay? This is the thing, because I believe the first time I read it, I actually gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. The more I've read it, I have actually read it each time a new book has come out, so this is my 3rd time reading this first book. And I have to say that the first 2 times, I was so overwhelmed by these questions and the philosophies that Shusterman brings up that I was almost too busy being overwhelmed by the fact that these questions were asked at all, that I didn't really get the chance to answer them. This time through, since I knew they were coming, I actually spent far more time trying to inwardly answer these questions, and I have to say I enjoyed every second of it, because now that humanity is immortal, they don't have to fear death. They have actually grown stagnant. If you've got a bucket list, part of what motivates you to get this bucket list done is the fact that you have a very limited time to accomplish it. Well, what if you didn't have a limited time? What if you had all the time in eternity? Would your bucket list be as big of a priority? And I mean, the first 2 times I read it, I just kind of sat there and I was like, that's deep. Oh, what? And I was just kind of more over, you know, thinking about the fact that apparently Shusterman thinks about this at all, but I mean, okay, all right, fine, whatever. But this time when I actually spent time thinking about it from my own perspective, answering the questions about myself and how I would deal with situations like this. And there were some things that I believe, I'm not going to say that I think that Shusterman's reasoning is flawed, because it would sound like it's reflecting badly on the book, which is not the case at all. It's all part of the book, and it's part of what makes the book interesting. It's just, there was one part that really stuck out to me. It was when Rowan was talking about school, and how Rowan was perfectly capable of doing excellent in school. His teachers had told him that if he had just applied himself, he would be doing great and he would have these great grades. And he made, you know, a great grade on a test to prove that he could, but then school became just another placeholder to pass the time. And that really, really bothered me, because I mean, it just, is that really all life is for us? Is just literally passing the time? And I'd like to think that the amount of time that we have is not what determines our quality of life. Because under the Thunderhead, there was a basic income guarantee. Currency really wasn't all that big of a deal. There was no poverty. You know, pretty much anything you needed, or honestly that you even wanted within reason, the Thunderhead would provide to you. And I just kept thinking that in a life like that, I mean, why wouldn't you scour every single part of the globe before you started getting bored? I mean, am I just weird in the fact that I think that if I had an unlimited amount of time with nearly unlimited resources, that I would totally keep myself busy for a very, very long time? And I mean, and it was things like, well, you know, the Thunderhead already has, you know, the vast amounts of human knowledge, and even things that humans themselves hadn't actually learned. The Thunderhead now knows all knowledge possible. Well, that's great, and great for the Thunderhead, and great that it's, you know, conquered death and allows us to be immortal, but just because the Thunderhead knows it doesn't mean that I know it. So would I stop wanting to learn things just because the Thunderhead already knows it? And it just, and I mean, and that was something that Scythe Curie, one of the other Scythes, she's the grand dame of death, something that she does and that she admits that she does is that she's learned how to cook, and she's actually become quite a culinary master. And to me, that's like, oh my gosh, so you get to look forward every single day to what you're making for dinner. I mean, does the simple pleasures of enjoying a meal really that dependent on the amount of time that you have on this world? And I mean, I'm not joking. That's what happened this entire book. I mean, yes, there's a story. Yes, there's a lot that goes on. I don't want to talk too much about it because I don't want to give everything away. But those kinds of things are always being brought up throughout this entire book. And I just, and again, I spent all of my time trying to answer these questions, and it just, So, I mean, this book is really, it really is all about the philosophizing, and you get to know the Scythedom, and you get to see a lot of its problems. I don't want to talk too much about it again, because you need to read this for yourself, and believe me, you're going to love it. 5 out of 5. So then we move on to the Thunderhead. And this is where you actually literally get to know the Thunderhead itself, whereas the first book has a lot of the journals of the Scythes, both living and dead. Thunderhead is literally the thoughts of the Thunderhead. And what I found really fascinating was a lot of the same questions kept coming up within the Thunderhead, just applied to the artificial intelligence that exists and its view on humanity, and honestly its view on itself. Because one thing that I did find incredibly interesting is that the Thunderhead multiple times admits that it is not God. It is not it is not, well, I guess it is perfect in the sense that a computer is perfect. However, it is not omniscient. It is not all powerful. And it just, getting to know the Thunderhead as its own separate character, you know, this idea, because I actually went and I heard Neal Shusterman. I went to a book signing. I got to hear him speak about the writing of Arc of a Scythe, and something that he said was that, you know, this idea of a dystopian post-apocalyptic, you know, Earth and what it would be like is something that's really popular now. But what he decided to do was he was going to have a dystopian world, but what happens if it was a perfect world? And Thunderhead really gets into, because not only do you continue the stories of Citra and Rowan, but you get all of these ethics that are thrown in, that the Thunderhead feels like it's, you know, its hands are tied because it does not have any jurisdiction over Scythe matters. Once a Scythe chooses someone to die, to be gleaned, the Thunderhead cannot revive the person, because there's a difference between dead and dead-ish. Dead-ish, you can be revived. But if you're gleaned by a Scythe, you're dead. You're gone. That's it. And you start seeing the conflicts that arise between the Scythedom and the Thunderhead. And you start learning. And that's when you start seeing the cracks. Because, I mean, believe me, you see the cracks in the Scythedom. They're not hard to see. And again, there are, I mean, lots and lots of questions. But in the Thunderhead, you start to see the cracks in this perfect world that has been created, you know? And I mean, and you get to know a lot more. You continue the story. All this time, this story is happening. It's just, Shusterman likes to unload all these thoughts and all these things that you sit and ponder, and you're just going, okay, all right. Huh. So then we have book number 3, The Toll, which oh my gosh, because I'm not going to lie to you, when I started Thunderhead, I thought this series was only a duology. 2 books. Yeah. No. And there's a really big cliffhanger in Thunderhead. Okay. After reading Scythe, I was like, okay, all right, fine. I can wait for Thunderhead. Okay, we're good. Yeah. No, after Thunderhead, I was like, every swear word I knew, I was using in my head against Neal Shusterman. I mean, every disease I could think of, every horrible thing that I could wish upon him, I was wishing it. But then, 6 days ago, The Toll arrived, and it was so worth the wait. Oh my gosh. Because everything that Scythe and Thunderhead offered, The Toll just kind of took and absorbed, and everything just kind of started resolving. And it had this way about it where, I'm not going to lie, there were certain portions that were getting kind of slow, because there are multiple storylines that are happening all at once. So it was one of those things where I don't want to say that it was slow, it was suspenseful, because you'd be, okay, you've got A happening, and you're getting all involved in A, and you want to know what's going on, and you want to find out what happens, and then boom, you start on B and you're going, no, wait, we have to find out what's going on with A. But no, okay, all right, fine, we have to follow B. So then you go with B, you're getting all involved, you want to know what happens, and then boom, you hit C, and you're going, stop, wait, no, what about B? And then you get going with C, and you keep going, and you want to know what's up, and then boom, you go back to A, and you're going, the whole time, you're going, no, what happens? And it's one of those things where you can't read fast enough. You cannot read fast enough to absorb all this information and find out what's going on, because it just, and it drove me nuts because I was so frustrated because I'm like, I've got to find out what happens. And then just when you think you're going to find out what happens, you don't actually find anything out because something else happens, and you just, you know what I mean? Y'all are book nerds. You get it. You know what I'm talking about. But I will say, oh, Thunderhead also got 5 stars out of 5. I don't know if I said that. I will say The Toll did get 4 stars out of 5 because of some very minor things. The one thing that did actually kind of bother me was these politically correct things that Shusterman snuck in, but he wasn't successful with sneaking it. It became bigger than it should have. I mean, these little things that just, they literally don't matter. And honestly, if you wanted to include them, okay, fine. It should have been like, you know, a paragraph and then you move on and that's it. But it felt like he kept shoving it down your throat and you're just like, okay, stop. I literally don't care. I did not come to read this book to be preached at. And that did annoy me. I mean, there were these little teeny tiny political barbs, which I mean, okay, all right, fine. I don't care. All right, fine, whatever. But it just, again, the things that really shouldn't have mattered, that should have, fine, if you want to mention it, but quit turning a molehill into a mountain, if that makes any kind of sense. I will also say that I do need to go back and reread this. I will probably reread the entire series next year to get a little bit more of a grasp on this, because, you know, you read something once and you very rarely get everything after a first time reading. So I will have to go back and reread this, and I have this feeling that once I reread it, a lot of these little teeny tiny details that I felt weren't completely resolved will probably be resolved. But I will say that The Toll has that same quality of book number 1, Scythe, where it totally makes you think. Because I liked the way that Shusterman actually started bringing in a lot of things that were really familiar. Because, you know, you're talking about how the Thunderhead doesn't claim to be God, and, you know, the Tonist religion is really looked down upon in this world of, you know, no death. So why would you need God? Why would you need religion? You know, but yet the Tonists still have it, but yet he brought in a lot of the aspects of Christianity, the idea of a Messiah, the idea of cutting people off from, you know, whatever this thing, you know, whatever presence is larger than ourselves, the idea of being cut off from that, looking for redemption. And I actually found it really, really interesting. I liked how he brought all those elements in, and I also very much appreciated his very realistic, blunt view of humanity. Because a lot of people, you know, they do this thing where, you know, you're on one side or the other, and you're either right or you're wrong. And it's one of those things where Shusterman did not show it like that, because you've got, you know, one side or another, but this is not about right versus wrong. This is about the actions of the individual people within each of these, you know, sides and philosophies and world viewpoints, where you had, you know, some people who, you know, if you're on side A and you have someone standing next to you who believes pretty much everything that's, you know, the same thing that you do, but yet their actions reveal them to be a, you know, you don't agree with their actions and you don't agree with the kind of person that they've chosen to be. And that happens on both sides of the aisle. And I actually really liked that. I liked how he brought in this realistic view that, you know, while you have the Thunderhead, who is, you know, perfect, He is, you know, it is the AI who, you know, runs Earth and controls it and has become almost all powerful. But yet you have humanity who, even within this perfect world, is still incredibly flawed. And I liked that. I liked how he showed that, where, you know, perfection is not achieved within humanity. Unfortunately, perfection, you know, would have to be achieved in spite of humanity. And I liked that. I liked that very realistic view on it, and I thought it was really good. As for the story itself, like I said, it was suspenseful. It kept me going. I couldn't read it fast enough. And then when things started to resolve themselves, they all made sense. There weren't actually any major, you know, loose ends. I was incredibly satisfied with how everything ended. And this series, it was so impactful. I mean, concepts that never occurred to me before still fascinate me and still perplex me. And I still, you know, even after reading Scythe for the third time, there's still things that I haven't quite worked out in my own head. And I enjoy, you know, contemplating them and pondering them and figuring things out, you know, working my way through things. And I really like that. Shusterman, he you know, is an incredibly neutral voice when it comes to a lot of really big issues, and he allows you to think things through yourself and to come to your own conclusions. And that is something that, I mean, in a world of, you know, people constantly trying to recruit to one side or the other, you know, having a neutral, you know, moderate voice that allows you to think for yourself, I actually really like, and I really like it a lot. I will say that as a series, there are portions of it that would keep me from recommending this to younger teens, simply because, like I said, the concepts are so huge. I mean, for crying out loud, I'm 31 years old and I'm still not sure that I understand absolutely everything that was, you know, that's going on and that's being asked and that's being, you know, figured out through all this. So I would save it for, you know, teens who have a little bit more maturity to them, you know, who are actually able to spend a little more time, you know, figuring out these kinds of things, you know, in the philosophical kind of way, you know. But honestly, I really don't have anything bad to say about this series. I was completely satisfied with how everything turned out. I mean, Shusterman, he is a freaking genius, and I will continue to read anything he writes. I mean, if it's got the name Neal Shusterman on it, don't even have to read the description. Don't have to read any reviews. I already know it's going to be great. I already know I'm going to enjoy it. That's it. That's it. And so there you go. The Arc of a Scythe series. Let us know if you have read it down in the comments. If you have read any of oh my gosh, you guys, this is what happens when I film, you know, in the early hours of the morning. I lose all, I don't know. I lose everything. I can't speak. I can't think. It's just the way it is. Any other of Shusterman's works, we would love to hear it. And you guys know that I love to sit and discuss stuff back and forth and everything. So let us know. Tell us what you think of our reviews. If you have any book recommendations for us, make sure you tell us down in the comments. And thank you so much for watching. Hopefully everyone has a fantastic day, and stay tuned for more reviews and more book to film comparisons and monthly wrap-up videos. Have a great day. Bye.